We're about to take both of these Jeeps out and get them a little bit dirty and see what this base two-door can do. Now, I've been able to test mine out a few times, not really get a ton of it on camera because when we go wheeling, sometimes we do it purely for fun, but most of the time we have to film. It takes a lot of time, and we also want to show you guys what we're doing, so we figured the best time to do that was at a local event where we could both hold a meet and greet, support a great cause, and then get our Jeeps dirty as well and really see what especially Ryan's two-door can do. But in today's video, we like to talk about a few things before we go wheeling. We're going to talk about some tips for both of these and get started. The first thing that I always consider when I'm going off-roading or even on a wheeling trip is how long I'm going for, where I'll be going, and that really determines what I want to check or any extras I might want to bring. Now, there's always kind of a list that I run down through in my head when I go off-roading as far as what I want to check on my vehicle, but if you're going to somewhere that's a little bit more extreme, you're going to want to kind of cater to that event or that area. Now, for instance, this weekend we'll be going to AOAA, which is in, I would say, northeastern Pennsylvania, and we're not going to have a ton of dust. We're not going to have this crazy 5 days in the desert where we're going to have sand and dust and dirt being kicked up. We're going to be in the middle of basically a giant forest. And in that forest, we got to think of a couple things that are going to be there. It's mid-October right now. The leaves aren't really changed, so we're going to have a good amount of brush, and we could have some overhanging trees. Might be a great idea for us to bring a small handsaw to cut some of those trees out of the way. Now, the other thing I would say to consider for us is a big one is some water crossings. Up at AOA and Roush Creek, there are a good variety of water crossings, and there's some standing water there. So we want to check a few things on this Jeep to make sure that we're not going to get water in anywhere we don't want it to. Biggest things to go over with that, and something that I have on my always checklist, are the breathers for my front and rear axle. Now, the breathers in the axle allow any extra pressure or air to escape the axle, but they come up right up top to here and will not let any water come back in. The biggest thing for the axle breathers is you do not want water coming back down through, so you definitely want to check those on the front and on the rear. So I would double check those, and that is something that I always do. Now, if you were going out into the desert or somewhere where you're going to see a lot of dust and debris, I might bring an extra cabin air filter and an extra air filter for under the hood. I might check that air box to really make sure that it's tightened down and make sure that I'm not getting any extra sand and dust in the cabin of the Jeep or in the air filter, because that can really clog it up. And I've seen a few times where that'll clog it up so bad that the engine actually stalls out. Those are some items to consider based on how long you're going to be going. Now, for our trip, it's just going to be a day trip. So we're going to and from the trail, and we want to make sure if there were any preventable issues, we can fix them right here in the driveway before we make it all the way up there and have some sort of trail fix. Now, for the second tip that I have, I really like to do a thorough once-over on the complete exterior of the vehicle. Now, I'm talking little basic things like your lighting, so headlights, all your off-road lights, your auxiliary lights, those are all working. My worn winch up front, I always verify that that works, and I have the controller in the back of the vehicle. Now, we'll get into that a little bit deeper when it actually comes to what I carry in the back of the Jeep, but forgetting your winch controller could be possibly one of the worst things to happen. Now, I have installed a Clayton 3.5-inch overland suspension system on here, so I double check all of the torque specs on the control arms. I do a visual inspection of any parts that I've added on, so I'm really going to go through this vehicle, check out all the stock components, make sure I have all the torque specs correct, and see if there's anything under there that just doesn't look right. If you could prevent something from breaking on the trail before you even get there, that's one of the best things that you can do. The next thing that I really like to check out, I do run a set of 37-inch tires on 17-inch beadlock wheels. I like to give my wheels a nice torque on the lug nuts there, and then I do also check my beadlock bolts, give them a retorque in the star pattern, and then go through all of them. That's a nice thing to do just before you're going to be lowering your tire pressure and raising it back up, to give those a once-over. Also, for me, my Jeep is due for an oil change, so I don't know if you guys have to do this, but if you're close to doing an oil change, it's not a bad time to do it before you're going to be wheeling, just because your RPMs are going to be a lot different in 4 low. And also check your oil level in the Jeep too. Make sure that you're topped off, and you might have a little bit of an extra fluid if you have an older Jeep that tends to burn oil. Kind of the same rules apply on a stock Jeep like Ryan's here. We have not installed anything aftermarket when it comes to the undercarriage, the engine, transmission, or any of the suspension, but it's still really good to give it a once-over. Even though everything is supposed to be torqued down from the factory, it is great to crawl underneath there, check out your Jeep, get to know it a little bit more, and also just do a nice visual inspection of all your components. You might notice that something looks worn out if you've got an older stock Jeep, and you might want to get that replaced, or at least look a little bit closer at it before you take it to the trail. So I know even people with stock brand new Jeeps like this, there have been stories that there have been kind of some things that might not have been torqued down properly, or they might be a little bit loose. And then let's kind of move on to the side of our Jeeps, because there's something I like to do when I'm locally wheeling. Does not matter the weather unless it's absolutely pouring rain or snowing. Even if it's 25, 30 degrees out, I am stripping down my Jeep as much as possible. That's just always something that I've done. I try and take as much off as possible on the exterior, including my doors, my top, and all of that. I get it removed when I'm wheeling. Now, there's a couple reasons I do that, and I'm not suggesting anyone do that for any reason. This is just what I personally do. I remove my doors. Not only it saves me weight, it prevents them from getting any terrible trail rash, scratches, or dents on them, because I've seen doors get absolutely demolished on the trail, but it gives me a lot more of the view of where I'm crawling. So I can just kind of poke my head out and I can see exactly what rocks are under me. I can see what's going on, and it makes me feel more connected to the off-road environment. When you're really crawling and you're throwing that weight around, I like to be as light as possible, and that includes myself. Maybe work on the treadmill a little bit, something. What do you think, Ryan? The biggest thing for me is it makes me feel more connected while I'm off-road. That's the way I like to wheel. One of the best things you can do for wheeling as well, I was just talking to Ryan about it. When you buy a base sport Jeep like this, or you just have a Jeep that does not have any rock rails, that's going to be something I'll very, very, very highly suggest that you install on your Jeep. Now, you can pick up used or take off rock rails for dirt cheap online. I've seen them as cheap as 20 bucks or even free. I used to give mine away personally just because I had so many sitting behind there, but this is a very vulnerable pinch seam here, and that's not something that we want to smash off-road. The biggest thing with that pinch seam is that if you dent and smash that, you can ripple this section, you can ripple the whole fender, and I would say that this is a preventable piece of damage that you can do to your Jeep. So finding a cheap set of rock rails and throwing them on your Jeep is definitely a must. We're gonna pick Ryan up a set this week just as temporary solutions, because we've got a new sponsor that will be on the channel and sending us a nice set for both of ours, but we're gonna pick him up a set of rock rails, throw them on here. Even if we have to pick up a 4-door set and trim them down a little bit, I've read online that that's super simple to do too. So I have not installed the full set of skid plates under my Jeep just yet at this point, but as much protection as you can do underneath and on the side of your vehicle, that's going to be crucial. First thing I think is really neat for wheeling, just because we always have drinks and snacks, this company, Sea Sucker, we met them down in Florida and we picked up one of their 2 cup holders, but these guys make some of the coolest products I've ever seen. They make full camp kitchens, full setups for your rooftop tent, and it's all a suction cup mount. So I actually carry my drink in here. These pop out, but check that out. Like, this is so sturdy. I think one of these, they said, can hold like 75 pounds of weight just with this small little one, but they're so versatile. The only problem is they kind of left us on red. So we've been trying to work with them. We bought the products and we love them, but we got to work with you guys. Like, send us some cool products and let's get it out there on the channel. I think they're great. And if you guys want to kind of push Dirt Road CRED a little bit, maybe tell them you saw it here. But Sea Sucker, definitely a really cool company. Some super innovative products. We use them for the GoPro mounts too. You can basically put it anywhere you want. So really cool, holds the drinks there. You want a good spot and even a sturdy spot to hold some things. So in the back here, the big thing that I have is I like to keep my gear organized in different areas, so that way I know exactly what I need to go for and where it's going to be located. Now, this first bag here we did with our Harbor Freight kind of haul video that we have. This is one of the giant Bauer bags, and inside here I keep all of my recovery gear. Now, what I have in here is a 30-foot Bubba Rope, snatch block, a hitch-mounted hitch link from Factor 55 here with a great D-ring or shackle on the back. I've got a shovel. I've got a winch dampener. My winch controls I also leave in here until I'm at the trail. And then one thing that I do, I like to kind of hook this up to the winch a while. And a little trick that I have is if you actually pop your hood latch, you can run the wire right underneath your hood latch and then close it. That way it doesn't hang down at all, and then just run it into the Jeep. But I keep it in here with this recovery gear until I get to the trailhead. We actually reached out to JT Brooks a few weeks ago, and they sent us a set of their automatic tire deflators. Now, these are really sweet because they're made in the USA and they save you a ton of time. Once you preset these to the PSI that you'd like, you simply walk around the vehicle, pop off your stem caps, and then screw these on and just wait. So you can either go in, check your registration, do whatever you need to. When you come back, all your tires will be down to that pressure and won't be any lower. These are really neat, and I'm excited to try them out on this weekend's trip because typically we just use this AEV standard deflator. Now, the easy deflator does work very quickly and gets you down to the exact PSI you want, but you have to manually sit there and check each one. There's a lot of big debates on this, whether to go with a CB radio, with a Midland, with something in the cab. I've always used these BaoFeng UV5Rs. So these are basically just handheld walkie-talkies. That's the way that we use them. You basically set them to the channel and then you can communicate with anyone in your party. Now, with these, they have a great range. They're super durable, and I actually made my own Pelican case with some foam cutouts so I can keep them in here. They're waterproof and they're locked up. That way I can grab the case, thread on the antenna like this, and I'm good to communicate with everyone in the entire team. Now, these are very cheap to get. Amazon actually just ran a special on Prime Day. I think they were like 2 for $40. So you got 2 of these with the chargers, with everything for 40 bucks. Great deal and a crazy good value. I've had mine for, how long do you think I've had these, Ryan?
They've been a while, and
That's since my JK, I've had these.
And I just remember the service being very wonky in certain trails around.
Oh yeah, you're not using your phone. Yeah, so this is great. I mean, the cool thing is, I mean, when you go out into a trail, the range isn't as far because you have all the tree coverage and the mountains and that. But if you're on flat ground, say you're in the desert or something, these are going to go very far when it comes to the distance. So yeah, great buy here. I keep them in the Pelican case just because I like to keep them secure, but we lock them down and then use these when we're out on the trail. So that's a nice one to have there. And then here's a little miscellaneous bag that I have. So my ARB recovery bag, it's actually reflective here. I keep a little bit of everything. So on the side of here, they actually have shackle mounts. So I keep a couple shackles. I've got 2 in there, an extra hitch pin. And then on the inside, they've actually got a 2-layer. So you open that up and you can unclip this. I keep a couple things in here. And like I said, I'm not fully ready to get it set up, but I keep a little toolkit, Noco jump pack, just in case the battery does die or we need to charge anything else. I've got a speaker in there. That's probably from Jeep Week. An extra light, another hitch D-ring mount. And then in here, this is kind of where I tuck some more things. I do have a secondary first aid kit that I keep in here, as well as the one on the back of my Molly pouch. First aid kit is definitely something that you should have. On the other side, got a nice set of gloves here and another hitch pin, as well as some zip ties and a couple other things in there. On today's viewer rig of the video, we are checking out May 900's 2-door 2022 Jeep Wrangler. Now he's got some simple exterior mods that he's doing. He's got a couple things that have been paint matched on the Jeep. Actually, a few more than a couple things. So this 2-door is in a nice firecracker red, and then he's got a neat paint job on the hardtop. Looks with like a little bit of a wrap as well. Now this is just more of a daily driver. It's got some things that have been modified to it. And I gotta say, I do like some of the color matched accents. Reminds me a lot of the Distinction Applied pieces that we install on this channel. So hey, huge shout out. I appreciate you sending this Jeep in. I love the 2-door there, especially in the firecracker red. If you guys wanna have a chance at your Jeep being featured, be sure to send us a message on Instagram or shoot us an email. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed this video. This is just kind of a basic rundown of what we do when we get ready for a wheeling trip of this nature. Now we're staying local, so it's not like a super multi-day event, but this is going to be a good time for us. It's Ryan's first time taking this Jeep out just because it is so new, and it's going to give us a good baseline of what this Jeep can do in its stock form. Now of course we're adding lift, wheels, bumpers, tires, and all sorts of fun to it, but we want to see what it can do like this, because regardless of what you guys have, these vehicles are extremely capable, and it's great to test them in this form before you go and spend a ton of money like I did on this. Now, if you guys have any tips that you do before wheeling, we'd like to read them down below in the comments, and maybe we could almost get like a whole thread started. That'd be kind of neat. So let's keep it clean down there and drop some comments on what you do before you go wheeling. This is a hobby, this is fun, this is our passion, and we take great pride in what we produce. So thank you guys so much for following along and watching this content. If you guys want to support the Protection for Paws, we'll leave the link down below in the description. It'll show you how to sign up and then maybe even buy a shirt or buy some merch while you're there at AOAA. And if you're not local, there's still options for you if you wanted to support that charity. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I don't know how the weather is going to hold up. They're talking about rain this weekend, but rain or shine, we'll be there, and we hope to see you too if you're on this side of the country. Until next time though, my name is Matt with Dirt Road CRED, and I want you to get out there and earn yours.